Hello, my fellow Americans. I have just become the president of all real estate in the United States, and I have been tasked to fix this home crisis that we're dealing with. So, in this video, I'm just kidding. I listen. I had this idea where I'm like, okay, if I were to fix things and make them better, what would I do? Now, clearly, there's a lot of pros and cons to what I'm going to talk about, and I am going a little bit into fantasy land here, but it begs the question: how would we make this better? So, I'm going to give my 4 points of what I think needs to happen to make this housing situation better, and I would love to hear your guys' feedback. And if you have any ideas, let me know in the comments below. By the way, I usually don't ask, but if you like my shirt, come on, you guys get this from sure. Hopefully you do. If you like it, do me a favor and hit subscribe, please. There's a big percentage of you guys that are watching and are not subscribed. Hey, just hit it. It doesn't bother you. My videos won't pop up anyways if YouTube favors a freaking algorithm other than your subscriptions. So just hit it, make me happy, and enjoy yourself. Now, anyways, what would be the first thing I do to fix this situation, this housing problem we're having? Real estate market issues, if you will. The first thing I would do is I would beef up first-time home buyer loans. What does this mean to beef them up? Well, first and foremost, right now, there's down payment assistance programs, right? And a lot of people say, oh, they're first-time home buyer programs. And a lot of times, I talk to somebody and they're making like $150,000 a year, and they're like, hey, Javier, should I try to qualify for one of those first-time homebuyer programs since I'm a first-time home buyer? And I have to always educate people, hey, there's no such thing. They're down payment grants, and yes, one of the requirements are for you to be a first-time home buyer, but there's always adverse effects. Like there's a minimum income level, there's higher interest rates, and it really just not beneficial a lot of times. It used to be really helpful, but right now in this market where sellers are having 10, 12, 15 offers, it makes things very difficult. So the first thing I would do is I would beef up first-time home buyer loans. And how I would do that is, first, I would make sure the best interest rates go to first-time home buyers. You'd have to prove, obviously, in some way that you are a first-time home buyer through some kind of background check or whatever. But if you're a true first-time home buyer, you are guaranteed to get what's the best interest rates at that point of time. The second thing is, if you are a first-time home buyer, it somehow would come across in the offer, and the seller would actually have to pay less fees with title fees and closing fees and whatnot with your first-time homebuyer program or whatever loan it was. The third thing, as part of our first action plan, is we're going to standardize our down payment and closing costs. So not only is the seller paying less fees, which are given the incentive to work with you, you're getting the best interest rate, but your down payment and closing costs are always standardized. I don't believe in zero down programs. I do think there needs to be some kind of cost of home ownership. Now, but if we make it a standard fee of, like, let's say standardized 3% across the board, standardized closing costs across the board, then it gives people a goal of what to save up for, because you need to have at least some kind of lemon, right? We can't just, put 0% down, everybody come in, because when that was happening years ago, just inflated prices really crazy, right? So we need to have some kind of standardized general down payment amount that is true to everybody. So that's my first action plan. My second action plan is going to be a little controversial, and good luck getting this accepted when all these investors have all the money and the lobbyists in their pocket. So let's just say I'm supreme ruler here, dictator, if you will, or the low sodium lord, as some might say. I would say let's increase the capital gains that sellers pay when they decide to sell to an investor. For those that don't know what capital gains tax is, essentially, if you sell your house before 2 years after you own it, you have to pay taxes on it. Capital gains tax, whatever your normal tax rate is, 10, 20, 30, 35, 40%, you're paying that as a tax. So if you make $100K off your house that you only sell before 2 years, you're not making $100K. You're giving the government something. You're giving them a fat $25,000-$30,000 check. So how you avoid that is, if you wait after 2 years, you can sell it, and depending on your state, like here in Arizona, I think it's $250 if you're not married, $500 if you are, I believe, or it could be $200 or $400, I don't recall. So if you make anything less than that, then you don't pay taxes. So if you're married and you sell a house and you make $300,000 and you lived in it more than 2 years, guess what? Those $300,000 are fully all yours. But if you make more than what the limit is, then you have to pay taxes on anything that went over the limit. My idea is that we just make a universal, hey, if you're selling to an investor, which they have to disclose when they buy the property if they're an investor or if they're a primary occupant. If you're selling to an investor under Javier, the low sodium lord's rule, you're going to pay more capital gains tax, mandated. because you want to sell to an investor, that's fine. Now, it's not just cash buyers. It could be a cash buyer that, they could, if a first-time home buyer or a home buyer has cash to buy, then they're not under this rule. But if they sell to an investor and that for the purpose of renting out that property, well, guess what? You're paying a mandated 10 or 20%. So yeah, you might make more money selling to that investor because their offer is higher, but you're going to pay a 10%, 15% tax penalty with selling it to them. If you sell it to the first-time home buyer or the move-up buyer or someone who's primary occupant or buying it for a family member or something family-related or friend or not family in general, but they're buying it for not the purpose of renting it, then they might be offering less, but you might make more money with them because you don't have to pay a tax fee. See? So we're kind of screwing the rental companies. Once again, they would immediately get involved. Lobbyists and our lovely government, who's not bought out at all, would totally not allow that. Third thing is a little more on the controversial side, but hear me out, okay? So, you remember tuition? Remember how tuition works for colleges? Like if you're in-state tuition, you pay less to go to that college, but if you're out-of-state tuition, you're paying more, right? Because if you're not from that state, you don't reside in it for at least 3 to 6 months or something, then you're paying a higher fee, a higher tuition. Why don't we do in-state interest rate and potentially closing costs? Let me explain. So if you reside in the state for at least 6 months, then you qualify for whatever the normal rates are or normal loans are, right? But if you're moving from out of state, you're moving here, we need to have something in place where you're at least in the house in the area for 6 months. You have to at least rent someplace else or, go Airbnb or whatever for at least a period of time. Doesn't matter if you're being transferred here. Doesn't matter if anything like that. You live in it, you pay your dues. And then at that point, or if you're very desperate to buy, then you can buy with an out-of-state tuition, essentially out-of-state interest rate, out-of-state closing costs, whatever. So it'll hurt a little more. So we discourage from mass moving. So I understand people are always going to move state to state. That's going to happen. You're going to get transferred. Maybe militaries probably get exceptions. Mandated transfers get exceptions, whatever. I'm sure we can work something out there. Our lovely government will make sure everyone is treated fairly. But if you're just moving just because things are cheaper, then you have to, at least if you want to get the best rate and everything possible, move here first, rent here first, see if you like it. Then potentially you can buy if you want to, or if you are going to buy, it's going to hurt more to buy, right? So you're gonna have to pay a little more. Knowing the situation though, they're just going to probably have to offer more to offset that cost, or who knows, maybe they'll just have to pay less to offset it and it'll help out. I don't know. Well, personally, I think it hurts my heart to see a lot of my native Phoenicians here who've lived here their whole lives, who, like someone commented in my last video saying they're a nurse, they lived here for a long time, they can no longer afford a home here. And maybe 4 years ago, they would have been able to afford a home just fine. But a single working nurse, she can't afford a home anymore because things got too expensive. So not saying it's out-of-state people's fault. I'm not saying that. And I'd be hypocritical of me because I've helped people from out of state. But if we somehow do something to fill that gap or discourage a mass migration, then maybe it'll be a little just slow things down so things don't, instead of increasing this much in a 4-year span, it'll take longer so that nurse has a chance to buy somewhere in the middle, if that makes sense. And my last action plan, hopefully I didn't offend 2 people so far, is to create first-generation home buyer grants. Once again, getting into the controversial here, but I truly believe in the power of it's powerful when you're the only person in your family after, let's say, the last 2-3 generations who've actually been able to buy a house. And I think these people sometimes are not giving much justice, right? So I think there should actually be home buyer grants. And if you can prove that you're a first generation home buyer, meaning that no one's bought your home for the last 1 or 2 generations in this country, then you should be given some kind of special grant program or some kind of something to promote home ownership. Because what happens is, if a parent and grandparent and a grandmother and a grandfather, they decide to rent, and then now their kids, which are your parents, they decided to rent. And just for the choices of one generation, a lot of times the following generations tend to follow in that path because that's what they were modeled, right? That's the behavior that was modeled. And, eventually once it gets to you or your kids, they might not have the incentive to buy because, well, mom and dad always rented, grandpa always rented. Why should I buy? Now, sometimes it happens on the opposite effect. Sometimes they get motivated to buy, but a lot of times buying seems so scary to those families that are stuck. They're stuck in a multi-generational thing where they're just renting. There should be some kind of encouragement or support given to those people that want to take that first opportunity. I'm not a first generation homeowner, but I am somebody who has seen a lot of people achieve their goals, and it's really amazing. And now it's really discouraging to see a lot of those people not be able to fulfill those goals because housing has gotten too expensive. It's impossible to deny that there's certain cultures or certain families that encourage people to buy. They encourage their children to buy. I personally, my children, I'm going to encourage them to buy as soon as they can because I've seen the benefit and power of owning your home as early as possible. Other people are not told that. They're just told to survive, or maybe they're not told anything at all. My father didn't give me much support or help, like, hey, go buy a house when you turn this age. No, I kind of just stumbled on this real estate thing and I learned on my own, and here I am. So I don't know, I just feel like my first generation buyers out there need some support and love. So those are my 4 action plans. Will they fix everything? No, I'm sure you can tear apart each one, but man, I just feel like there needs to be something. There needs to be some kind of discouragement from investor purchases. We need to see more encouragement of first-time home buyers. And I almost put one of them. I'll leave this as like a 5, maybe 5. Is putting limits on how much houses can go up in value. That's a little tough though, because it's kind of going into getting away the free market situation. So I'll leave that as is. I'll take that off. It's not number 5, but if we just somehow find a way to discourage those investors, encourage sellers to sell to first-time home buyers, which I can say, it's not the seller's fault. The sellers are always going to go, they're trying to protect their family, so they're going to always pick the best offer. I don't blame them if they get an investor offer that's $50K over. Okay. So if there's some kind of penalty for them to go, crap, well, I should give it to the first-time home buyer instead because of this reason, then maybe we can encourage that somehow, and maybe it's the effect maybe eventually helps first-time home buyers. Who knows? Maybe I'm full of crap. If you're interested in getting connected with a great real estate agent, make sure to check out our great agent referral program with homeloan.com/Javier. The best people out there. They'll get you connected. Brittany and her team are amazing. They're going to talk with you. They're going to get you connected with an agent. They're going to follow up with you and the agent to make sure they did a great job. And if they didn't, their ass is fired, and they get you another agent. That's how great they are. So I appreciate everybody's time. If you guys have any questions, you can always email me here. And if you want to be considered for a future video as well, let me know. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate y'all. Peace.